Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we get to finally drive the Porsche 911 GT3RS. This is the 992 generation, the latest and greatest. This one is a 2023 model. It's got the Visoc package, it's Arctic Gray, and it's outrageous. When they first displayed this car, I couldn't believe this was a real production vehicle. It looks like a concept car. It looks like a race car. It is as race car as it gets for the street. This wing has DRS. We haven't even gotten to the power yet because the exterior is so absurd. Look at the swan neck wing with these actuators here, so it can actually give you more or less downforce depending on what you'd like, because remember, the byproduct of downforce is drag. So if you add a whole bunch of downforce, your top speed can be limited, and that means on those straightaways you're not going as fast. But what this can do is add downforce in a corner and then release it, so that way on a straightaway you can accelerate faster and get to a higher top speed. It's powered by a naturally aspirated 4-liter flat 6 that revs to 9,000 RPM and makes 518 horsepower, a little bit more than the standard GT3. And there's no manual option. PDK only here, because the goal is lap times. They do not care about your driving pleasure or need to row gears. No, this is meant to set lap times. If you want the manual, you can still option that on your non-RS GT3. This one has the Visoc package, so it's got 33 pounds of weight reduction. Part of that is this carbon roof and bonnet and some fun stuff. Of course, you've got carbon buckets inside, and in here it's very much business. There are no rear seats. There's very little storage room. In fact, if you want to use this as your weekender, you're going to have to fit everything in the cabin, because there is no frunk in the GT3RS. There's just more equipment for cooling and such under there. So that might be a deal breaker. You may want the best, baddest thing that you can get, but if you're using this as like a real street car and you're really doing some touring, this could get rough if you're carrying more than what fits in there. The bodywork is all about increasing downforce, releasing pressure from these wheel wells, and making it slippery. So it has a lot going on for it, but it's also doing its best to reduce weight. So check out these wheels. There's actually holes in the wheels, because if you take away material, you take away weight. And gluing us to the road on a 20-inch wheel up front is a 275 section tire. That's the rears on my E39 M5. And in the rear on a 21-inch wheel, there's a 335 section tire. So that is a lot of footprint. And the beauty of a rear engine car is that you're able to put all that weight over the rear axle on an acceleration. So that weight transfer just adds grip and allows you to rock it out of a dig from a stop or scurry away from an apex with grip. Every angle on the car is brutal. There's just these side strakes, there's cutaways, there's cutouts. You can't get enough of it, and you pick up all the rocks. I mean, this car has barely been driven, and it just always finds something in the road to leave you a little gift. McLaren is guilty of this as well with their crazy doors. You get these little scoops here that's not found on the standard GT3. And other than this Porsche badge, all the badges are stickers in the name of weight savings. Back here with our pretty giant diffuser for a street car, you've got a center exhaust coming through the middle. It sounds fantastic. And up front for additional cooling, this is the craziest nostril setup I've ever seen. And in typical RS fashion, yep, that's a sticker. So you're saving a gram here and there. So let's jump in and take it for a drive, because I just cannot wait to experience this car. The first thing you notice when you get in the RS is there's extra knobs and switches on the steering wheel. Typically, you've just got a drive mode. This has PASM adjustment, PTV plus, traction control. You can adjust on the steering wheel the compression and rebound settings of this suspension. That's bonkers. And it's actually a fairly large responsibility, because you kind of need to know what you're doing. So maybe don't play with these on a racetrack if you don't know, but adjust, figure out what works. But this is something that you used to have to go back to your paddock, adjust things manually, and go back out. The GT3RS has like democratized a pit crew, whereas if you know how to adjust things, you don't need a mechanic to do it for you. You can actually just do it on the steering wheel. Let's get it started up. Left ignition. Sounds pretty angry on startup. The key actually lets you know that it's an RS. That's pretty neat. And just like every 992, we get a glass display, but we get an analog tach. And if that tack needle looks a little nervous, it is. I swear it's vibrating. It sounds phenomenal all the time. The doors are lightweight. You've got carbon fiber pulls here, and your door handles are replaced by fabric. Put it in gear. We've got a proper lever. I love this. This is better than the bronze shaver thing that they're putting in all their other cars. And I just think the GT3 and the GT3RS and the GT4RS all deserve this extra special treatment. It looks cool, but don't be fooled. It is not a manual gearbox. It's saying aerodynamics in low downforce mode, so it's built for speed. Let's get after it. It'll do 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. Now this one is not fully broken in, so we are gonna be a little nice to it. I'm sorry, but we're still gonna make as many wonderful noises and experience this chassis and suspension as we can. Couple things you notice. First of all, these paddles are definitely more exciting than the standard paddles in the GT3. They have a really good ka-thunk to them, so they've definitely changed that up. You almost feel like you've got to break them in and use them a bunch. We're gonna put our nose lift up over this annoying speed bump. Even though the 992 has grown up since the 991 generation in size, length, width, all that stuff, it has rear steering, so did the 991, but the rear steer in this car really shortens the experience in terms of making it feel smaller and more agile. Definitely a stiff car, but it's actually not as brutal as I thought. I was expecting this to be a lot less compliant. This car gets places at like 6/10 that most cars require 10/10. It's just the easiest thing in the world to drive. It's so compliant. It's giving me all the feedback in the world. I'm finding this to be such an easy thing to operate. And like, look, we could just jump into horrible traffic after a fun on-ramp, and it's still a car. I've got air conditioning. I've got a nice Bose audio system. Oh, all right, let's go find some more rural roads and get after it. Oh yes, loud carbon ceramics. I kind of thought this might be a bore because I'm not on a racetrack and the limits of this car are astronomical, like outrageous. You can do terrible things on racetracks with this car. It's very fast, it's very capable, and yet I think this has so much feedback and excitement and tactility that it actually is very pleasing and rewarding as a driver's car. Is it overkill? Oh yeah, I mean this is like the definition of overkill. Oh, check this out. I think it's a pickup truck Volkswagen bus. Yes. Kind of a bizarre old sibling to this. So the steering, it's like a little weird. I mean, because it's got this rear steer thing going on, it's just sensitive, but it's not twitchy. But I definitely noticed the tuning feels different than the standard GT3. And we've got double wishbone front suspension up front. That's a first for the 992 generation, allowing this car to be quite a bit more composed in the corners. It's so wild that GT3s were McPherson struts for so long. It's kind of the way that, say, Corvette had single leaf springs in the rear, or Mustang had a solid rear axle. Those things were done away with because at some point you just maxed them out. There's just no further you can go with your performance until you adjust that and improve that. So they've finally done that. They've gotten rid of that heritage front suspension, and now it can really liven up. Wind noise on the highway. I mean, it makes sense. There's a ton of aero on the thing. Just some whoosh kind of noises. But it's weird because, like, it settles down. It settles out and it's just a happy thing. Like, it looks so hardcore, and it is. But you could use this. You could take it on some rallies. You could drive it around. It's not going to beat you up. The level of grip you get from this car, even at low speeds, is outrageous. Now, all I really want to do is feel this at a high-speed corner with all the downforce on a racetrack. And I do have a friend who I think may offer me that opportunity, and hopefully I'll get to bring that track drive to you this Hopefully I get to bring you that track drive later this summer, but it's great. I mean, people love it. You gotta forget, because like I'm in a 911, and 911s are beautiful and everyone loves a 911, but you're really big timing people when you're in the RS. This thing mobs. This thing looks insane on the road, and people are gonna take your picture. You got kind of a Ventador style when it comes to this one. It just is flashy and in your face, but when you're driving it, it's just so easy. And that's what I love about Porsches. 911s are not supercars. They're sports cars, but they're as close as you get. And I don't know, man. I don't know that you want a supercar all the time. To me, sometimes a supercar is just too much effort. It's not that fun. And the sound of this engine just ripping through gears at any RPM, at any load, it's just so charming. PDK has its place. If you hold both paddles, it throws it into neutral, and then it's extra fun and spicy. You can already hear the comments saying, oh, you can't get it in a manual, so I don't want anything to do with it. I wouldn't drive some flappy paddle automatic. Good. Don't drive it. Don't experience the McLaren 600 LT or the GT3RS or any Ferrari or Lamborghini for that matter. Don't drive them. You don't have to. Leave them for me. Oh, that's the best sound in the world. Because I gotta tell you, I love rolling my own gears, but this thing is insane. And the beauty is, it's a 911, full visibility. Tough to get that in a lot of supercars, especially the mid-engine ones. It makes the practicality of driving tough, and 911 shapes just lend themselves to being good all-around drivers. So look, do I wish we could rev this out to 9,000 RPM over and over and over again and just do back-to-back launch controls? Yeah, I do. However, in this little drive, I've been able to discover how much insane passion has been dialed in to the RS suspension and chassis. And someday maybe we'll get to experience $9,000 and the downforce, but I'm blown away at how this is behaving on the street because it looks so race car. And when something looks so race car, it's often not very entertaining on the street. It's too much. It's frustrating. It's too sharp. It's too hard. Track cars do not make good road cars. This thing somehow some way is still very usable. You're not gonna just hang up the keys because it's too much. You're gonna wanna take it out. It's rewarding at pretty much every speed. So thank you so much to Bond Group for the opportunity to drive this for the first time. I'm thanking in advance someone in the future who lets me drive their RS on track. Maybe Porsche. Maybe we go back down to Atlanta and do the Porsche Experience Center with one of these. This is a big step up. And this is not just some minor incremental change. This is like the real deal. And if you are a cyclist, maybe just look before you plow into the road. I highly recommend that. I am a cyclist or former cyclist myself. I would love it if people behaved nicely. Don't hate cyclists, they are people, but you know, they should be kind of using their heads a little better. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. And look, I love the GT3RS as much as the next guy. Its induction sound is insane, but it's really loud inside the vehicle. This doesn't have those crazy intakes coming in because it's not mid-engine. It's the right amount of noise. It's crazy up top and it's subdued down here. So you can actually hold a conversation in the car. Oddly more usable.